As if a secret recording of Michael Cohen and Donald Trump talking about a payment to a Playboy model wasn't big enough, apparently we haven't seen anything yet, at least according to a new piece from our friend Emily Jane Fox in Vanity Fair, who writes, quote, "Did they think I was just going to roll over and die? The Cohen versus Trump battle ratchets up." A person close to Cohen said that he was privy to information that could be valuable to special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into Russia's attempt to interfere in the 2016 election. Quote, "When Michael says that he wants the truth out there and that the truth is not the president's friend, he's not talking about marginal issues. He's talking about core issues at the heart of the Mueller probe." This person continued, "Three people familiar with the situation believe that Cohen has discussed information about the June 2016 meeting in Trump Tower, during which Don Jr., Jared Kushner, and Paul Manafort met with a Russian lawyer with ties to the Kremlin, who promised to provide them with dirt on Hillary Clinton." Jason, Chuck, Paul, and Bill are all still here. It seems like we always end up back at the flashpoints that we've known for a long time to be of great interest to Bob Mueller. And this Trump Tower meeting, I mean, you know, the speculation is that Michael Cohen may have some knowledge about whether or not Donald Trump knew about it.
There's one of two things going on here with this feud, because I don't really think it's a feud, right? Michael Cohen is doing one of two things. He is either trying to protect himself and say, look, I don't want to get in trouble, or he's doing a say anything outside the White House and saying, look, save me, right? Saying, you know,
or
I know this.
Or like I'll go to the highest bidder. Right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I'll go to Mueller, I'll go to you. I mean, the moment, and Michael Avenatti talked about this months ago, this guy recorded everything. So even these certain number of tapes that we've heard about, whether it's 2 tapes or 12 tapes or anything else like that, he has a ton of information. And his greatest fear, I think, at the end of the day, is not necessarily just going to jail, or not necessarily, which is a fear, or offending the president. I think his greatest fear is not being important to this investigation and then just getting
if you're
sunk.
not important, you don't have the opportunity to flip.
Exactly.
I mean, we talk about people flipping, Chuck, and I'm sure this is not how it is, as though it's up to them, that they're sitting around going, should I or shouldn't I? It's really the other way around. It's up to a prosecutor if someone's going to have the opportunity to flip, right?
To some extent, that's exactly right, Nicolle. I mean, look, if you have information and I want it, and I'm a prosecutor, I'm going to get it. If you have information and I don't want it, you're not going to give it to me. Really, so I have more cards in this relationship. Ideally, it's a meeting of the minds, right? You want to help. I want your help. That makes it easy.
Or you don't want to go to jail. I want to know what you know about Donald Trump and his family.
Right.
Let's talk.
You want to help, and I want you to help me.
You're such a diplomat.
I think it just seems to me every time Cohen has emerged more centrally in the story out there.
And you've always
Trump
thought he was central,
Trump has sort of flipped out, right? I mean, he did originally when the office was,
raided,
searched legally, searched for the warrant. It's outrageous. Trump has never seen anything like it. It's
an
what
attack
was
on
the
the
term he
nation.
used?
Yeah, an attack on the nation.
Yeah, it's incredible. That's right. And now, I think this last week, incidentally, the fresh Cohen news seemed to coincide with some of Trump's crazier tweets and stuff, and the renewal of the attacks on Mueller, which he had let up for a while. So I think Cohen knows a lot. He's going to cooperate, I would guess, with Robert Mueller. Maybe he already is, for all we know.
Right.
You know, there's a lot going on that we don't see. And Trump is, I think, a little freaked out about that.
And we all forget that Cohen is of interest to Bob Mueller for reasons we don't know about. We know more about what was referred to the Southern District. So there's sort of two halves of they're the known unknowns of what Robert Mueller might have been interested in. And then there's the public-facing parts of the Cohen investigation, which seems to leak out. But I've never bought that Trump's angst is rooted in worries about campaign finance violation, because I bet my last whatever, that he has no idea what a campaign finance violation is.
He's not going to be impeached for campaign. Look, Trump's worried about himself. It's different. Chuck and I were talking about this, than a normal prosecution. They can convict 1 million. It's a gang of thieves. You know, they could be convicting these people for 15 years, I suspect, when they start looking at all the financial transactions and selling of access to going on.
I mean, in Queens,
Trump,
real estate, I mean,
taxi medallions.
But getting Trump, what is Trump is worried about himself.
Right.
And he thinks he probably can't be indicted, at least while he's in office, so he's worried about being impeached. And he's only going to be impeached if there's clear evidence of collusion and or obstruction of justice. I don't think the early financial stuff gets to impeachable stuff, probably. So that's what he's worried about, and that's where it gets back to the Trump Tower meeting, and it gets back to the conversations, the things that Trump did as president of the United States, which he discussed with Cohen contemporaneously. And that's why I think Cohen becomes so important in Trump's mind. And if Mueller flips Cohen, Mueller may not help him with any of those particular prosecutions of other people, but it might help if he writes a report to Rod Rosenstein, which then gets transmitted to Congress, that says, here's what Donald Trump did.
Doesn't it also, isn't he an important witness to in understanding the president's motives in the whole body of pro-Russia commentary during the campaign and now foreign policy as president? I mean, he would have been involved, Cohen would have been involved in any real estate transactions and any efforts to bring in Russian investment. Cohen seems like the person who crosses over from Donald Trump, the candidate, to Donald Trump, the politician.
Yeah, and is very aware of Donald Trump's business affairs, including in Russia. So he was one of the conduits between the Trump organization and Russians. So he's got all kinds of information. You know, when there's a movie made about this, I think the climactic scene is going to be that meeting with the Russian lawyer about dirt on Hillary. And at the same time, they're going to show Trump dictating that lie about the meeting on Air Force One. So that's consciousness of guilt by Trump. And again, if Michael Cohen has evidence about what was really going on, what Trump really knew, then he's the star witness in Trump's impeachment.
How is that not just straight up obstruction of justice?
The
crafting of a lie before
it is. I mean, it is straight up obstruction of justice, because a couple of things you need to remember about obstruction. You only have to try to obstruct. You don't have to succeed, right? And you don't even need an underlying crime. You just need an underlying investigation. So, you know, that, on the facts that we know publicly, Nicolle, look pretty damning. One other point I wanted to make. We keep talking about Cohen as the star witness with respect to Trump, or about Mr. Gates as the star witness with respect to Mr. Manafort. The Manafort trial is about to start. They're going to call dozens of witnesses.
5 new ones that we learned about yesterday.
5 new ones, and those are 5 who are being immunized, which means, and this is interesting, they did something wrong, right? It's not like a bank teller who just happened to be standing the bank was robbed. These are 5 additional people who did something wrong, presumably with Mr. Manafort. So there's going to be dozens of witnesses, some government agents, some some innocent bystanders, and some folks who were complicit.
Which just raises the question again: why is Mr. Manafort going to trial? Because these charges are relatively easy to prove. I think every day, Mr. Manafort, he decides whether he's more afraid of the Russians or whether he's more afraid of Robert Mueller, and so far he's been more afraid of the Russians.
Why do you think that the Manafort trial is going forward?
Sometimes people are just stubborn. Sometimes it's
Chuck
denial.
said it might not go. I mean, I think that was an extremely important point you both made that you should go back to. We don't know if it's going forward. There's no reason to fold. There's no reason to fold your cards before you have to, right?
I've had defendants plead guilty when they saw that the government showed up for trial and their witnesses were all sitting, outside the courtroom.
And they know that they're screwed.
Or they listened to the opening statement and said, okay,
okay, I'm out. Follow my 10. All right, it's going to be interesting. We're going to call on you guys early and often. Chuck Rosenberg and Paul Butler, thank you for spending time with us. Up next.